This is order level question 2, production budgets, from page 511 in modern accounting. So first, same as pretty much any question that we do, we need to lay out the blank document that we're going to fill in with our numbers. So we start off, we have a sales budget, production budget, raw materials usage budget, raw materials purchase budget, and then the labour budget. And you may be asked to do a manufacturing cost budget and a trading account, and I'll talk about those a little bit later. So first, sales budget. So how much money are we going to earn from sales? So first thing we need to do is we have two products, and each product has two different materials in it. So I'm going to use 4 columns here. So we have plain and we have superb. The reason why I use the 4 columns is because later on when I'm dealing with my raw materials usage. So for the sales budget, how many am I going to sell? So I'm going to sell, let's just have a quick look, see what do they sell for. Okay, so sell 3,400 units of plain. For superb is 3,800 units. We're going to sell them for €12 each and €15 each. So sales revenue then is multiplied the two of those together in both cases, and then we're going to add the totals together. So the overall money we're going to take in is 97,800. So that's the total amount of money you're going to come in. So that's our sales budget done. Now our raw materials, our production budget. So this is the number of units we want to make. So we start with our sales in both cases. And then we need to take into account how many have we already made and how many extra do we want to make to have as closing stock, and that will dictate the amount that we actually make. So our opening stock, finished goods are going to be opening stock for plain is 180 and closing stock is 240 and 240, and for superb 210 and 260. Now in both cases I've already made the opening stock, so I don't need to make that. So I've taken that away, but I do need to make extra to have as my closing stock. So there's my production, and I do the same thing over there. The production number then will dictate the amount of materials that I'm going to need to go and buy. So when we start doing our raw materials usage budget, we start with our production. Okay, so then we need to take into account how many kilos per unit. Now we have two materials, so material X and material Y. Okay, and I need 4 kilos of X. To do my plain, I need 4 kilos of X and 5 kilos of Y. And to do my superb, I need 2 kilos of X and I need 3 kilos of Y. So my total kilos, and this is just to make my plain, is going to be 3460, and that's the production times the material X amount, and then the production times the material Y amount. And then to make my other product, it'll be the production times 2 kilos, or 2 kilos per unit, and the production times 3 kilos per unit. So now what I want to do is I need to combine the material X and material Y together and just end up with only material X and material Y totals. Okay, so I'm going to try and get a total here. So for the total for material X, I'm going to need 13840 to produce my first product and 770 to produce, or 7,700 to produce the second one. So I'll add those two totals together. So that's all of my material X. My material Y, I have 17,300 for the first product plus 11,550 for the second product. So there's the total amount of material X and Y, okay, that we are going to need to use. So I just repeat those numbers. This is the first one, the materials usage, is how many kilos of each I'm going to use. The next is how much I'm going to have to spend to buy them. So this is where we take into account our opening and closing stock of the raw materials. So it says, material X, I have an opening stock of 160 kilos and I have a closing stock of 190. Material Y, I have an opening stock of 110 and a closing stock of 170 as expected. So there's my raw materials. This is how much materials I'm going to use. I'll take away my opening stock because I've already got that. Okay, I don't need to go and buy it, but I'll add on extra for my closing stock that I need to have. So same story again for this one. So materials usage minus our opening stock and plus our closing stock. We then take into account how much is each material cost. So we've got €7 per kilo and €9 per kilo. So multiply those two together. And then we can add our two money totals. And that's how much money I need to spend on my raw materials. Labour budget then. So for labour budget, I'm back to talking about my two products, so plain and superb. And I start off with how many of each I want to make. So I go to my production. Okay. And that's my production of plain and my production for superb. I'll multiply it by the number of hours per unit. Now, direct labor hours. So I have 3 hours to produce my plain and 5 hours to produce my superb. So I'll multiply those two together. So that's just over 10,000 hours to produce the plain product in labour time, and 19,000 for the others. So the overall total hours would be those two added together. Multiply that by the labour rate, which it says in the question is €7. So that means the labour cost is going to be those two added together. Sorry, those two multiplied together. So that's the amount of that's euros. So I'm going to spend just over 200,000 euros to make the product. Now, the last documents, in this case, you're not asked to do a manufacturing cost budget. But if you were, it's looking for the total amount of money to make your products. In this case, I have materials worked out and I have labour. So I'm going to spend 411,000 on materials, so that will go into raw materials cost. And I'll have to spend 207,000 on labour, so that will go into my labour cost. So you add those two together along with any other costs that might be given to you in the question to work out your overall manufacturing cost. And then that number, if you're asked to do a budgeted trading account, that number manufacturing cost would go into my trading account instead of purchases, because I'm not buying goods, I'm making goods. Just so you understand the theory.